Hello, everybody. Mike Sempervive here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Producer Dom behind the glass. Chipper, happy, ready to go. Another wonderful day of taking your calls. Seeing what's on your mind. 1-800-878-PLAY. 1-800-878-7529. If you can't give me a call, always available on Twitter as well, at Sempervive, at Sports Byline USA, and at WONF4W. It's WrestlingObserver.com/F4WOnline.com. Your home for everything you need in professional wrestling and mixed martial arts, and all of your audio needs as well. Dave and Garrett with a couple nights of shows for Observer subscribers, as well as the big boss man from Hawaii, getting off the beach, just like Don Morocco, off the waves to come in and do a little bit of audio for you, the subscriber of that fine website. A couple of late-night shows, venting his thoughts on Raw and SmackDown in the Superstar Shakeup. Rather underwhelming television shows. Very pedestrian. Not bad shows. It's not exactly shaking anything up with those Superstar Shakeups. Roman Reigns now over on SmackDown. We'll go through all of the names that landed there. And we'll also talk about some people that want out, including a guy that I thought was going to make some news yesterday because I figured, hey, this would be a perfect time to bring him up and put him right back to where he needs to be in the mix on SmackDown. But he says nay. Luke Harper wanting out of WWE, as well as Alexander Wolf, which now explains maybe a little bit why Eric Young was featured on Raw, or at least in the promotional materials for Raw, but without anybody else from Sanity. A couple other things going on, too. And joining me in the third segment, our friend from Sunday night's main event, TSN 1150 in Canada. Jason Agnew is going to join me. Be right back.
It's raining in the park, but meantime, sound of the river, you stop and you hold.
Mike Sempervive back with you. Need all the help I can get today. The only news right now are Raw and SmackDown changes and AEW news of the most minor variety. 1-800-878-PLAY is the number if you'd like to extend your hand out and put it on your listening device and grab that and give me a call and pray for me. Go to the WrestlingObserver.com website. We'll see what the afternoon update brings. But quiet times, if you're listening live right now at this moment. The biggest news up there. Fight for the Fallen AEW show in Jacksonville. The Daly's Place Amphitheater at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Saturday, July 13th. This is the show that will benefit Jacksonville's Victim Assistance Advisory Council. Brandy Rhodes, the chief brand officer of AEW, will be wrestling Allie. So there. Like I said, we're not knocking the bottom out today. I could give you a bunch of fake outrage over all of the moves that have been happening on Raw and SmackDown, and Liv Morgan being over on SmackDown now, and Chad Gable being stripped away from Bobby Roode and over on SmackDown, and be ranting and raving, but why? They were decent shows over the last 2 days, as TV shows go, just not very exciting. You know, Vince making a big hype about his announcement of the biggest move, the biggest free agent to ever move over to SmackDown. I'm thinking yesterday it was going to be Brock because, why do they want to put Roman Reigns in the position that they're probably going to put him in when they can wait on doing that? You can announce Brock Lesnar for SmackDown. People completely forget about it because he's not going to be there for a couple of months. Then he pops back up in the fall. Thought that would be a pretty good idea because back in my mind, I'm thinking it also could save Roman a little bit. Some of the, if I can't believe I'm saying this, post-cancer love has started to wane a little bit, and people remember that, okay, Roman, good, we're glad that you're healthy because we'd like to boo you again. And boo they did in Montreal last night when he was announced as Vince's big move and beat up Alliance. Nothing's been beaten up more than the Alliance of American Football, and actually it's I'll probably get to that too later on. Story in the Sports Business Journal. But Roman Reigns, knocking out Vince, spearing Elias, and there you are. With a heavily mixed reaction, it's probably going to continue to go further south. Poor Roman. But I brought it up yesterday, Brock Lesnar in 2003, the move that Stephanie made with battling with Eric Bischoff, that actually had some intrigue to it with them going after people. Stephanie poaching the Universal Champion for only her brand, which of course led to the split titles. And when WWE does gimmicky shows, a lot of times they're memorable, if not always good. I know the Christmas shows are much maligned. I never hated those shows as much as everybody else did. The most the big one being Alberto Del Rio, which I believe was taped before they did I forget exactly how it worked, but Del Rio had just turned babyface. And then the week after, they did a thing where he hit Mick Foley, who was playing Santa, with his car. And people said, well, he's still kind of a heel. It was a big mess. And they did basically what was a blow-off kind of half-comedy match, just a nobody get hurt going into the New Year match between John Cena and Alberto Del Rio. That was a little maligned, but at least I can remember that. You know, the Vegas shows, the Raw roulettes. I mean, they were at least memorable shows. Some of the ways they've done the draft from the initial one, which went completely haywire when Steve Austin quit, which led to, I think it was Ric Flair made the NWO his first. It was all a big mess. It was at least a little bit memorable. I don't know if anybody's going to remember anything coming out of any of these other than some of the stuff that's been attached to it. Like guys like Luke Harper putting in their notice. I'll read this from Twitter because after the show went off the air yesterday, Luke Harper tweeted out, quote, as of this evening, I have requested a release from WWE. The past 6 years have been simply an amazing journey around the world and back with lifelong friends and family. I am proud of it and proud to say I shared the ring with my coworkers. This decision, as difficult as it was, feels right for myself and WWE. My goal in the future is to continue to grow as a performer and person and continue to make my family proud. Thank you from the top to the bottom of WWE. Thank you to the fans for undying support. Thank you, everyone. I believe early this morning when the show with Dave and Garrett came out, if I recall correctly, Dave said that Luke Harper's contract looks to be up in November. He was out about 6 months with an injury. In theory, they could hold him a little bit longer because of that. And they could, of course, force him to go out there on the road and work, or at least, maybe not force him, but he could be contractually obligated to go do that sort of thing. So who knows when he's actually going to be released from his contract, but it's another person that feels pretty emboldened to go out there and do that. Another one being Alexander Wolf, who not long after Luke Harper made his statement, came out with one of his own. Quote, we, Sanity, made our TV debut in October 2016 for NXT at Full Sail University in Orlando. We had a great time in NXT and we accomplished a lot. NXT Tag Team Champions, NXT Tag Team of the Year 2017, the first ever NXT/WWE War Games match, performed in front of 15,000 people at a sold-out TakeOver pay-per-view, growing together as athletes and performers. The whole group is like a family to me. I made 3 good friends over the last 3 years, and I'm really grateful for that. It was without a doubt a great time. Thank you guys for everything. Now, Dave was speculating yesterday about Luke Harper and going public with his decision. Alexander Wolf went public with his. But it seems like in the case of Wolf that maybe this was known in advance. Dave talked about, Sasha, has not really said anything, although she said cryptic things publicly. She has not publicly flat out said that she'd like to leave. Just has been pointing that way and showing her happiness. Dave pointed out that people have gone public, and those people who have gone public, have gotten their release. Cody Rhodes is an example a couple of years ago. Most recently and most obviously, Dean Ambrose. Actually, WWE made that announcement when it came to Dean Ambrose. But there have been other guys. Ty Dillinger, as an example, of somebody who said they wanted their release and did it publicly. Luke Harper now added to that list. Alexander Wolf. And with Eric Young over on Raw, a lot of people were wondering why, when he was listed and nobody else was. Well, maybe that's because they knew. We'll have to find out. It does leave Killian Dane in an interesting spot. Although I was thinking, as I was watching last week's NXT UK, when they showed a video package on Dave Mastiff, thinking, man, what are they going to do with Killian Dane? Big dude, he's not tall or anything like that. I can't believe his WWE, the maximum that they're going to do with him creatively is going to be beaten up by The Miz, getting The Miz over as a babyface tough guy. Maybe the last of him for now, but some new scenery may do him really good. And we'll have to see what happens with NXT. But I think him on NXT UK would be a welcome thing. Maybe building up to something with him and Walter. We'll have to see. Want to get your thoughts as well? 1-800-878-PLAY, 1-800-878-7529. Jason Agnew join me a little bit later on. We'll be back.
You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez and Mike Sempervive on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
Mike Sempervive back with you. I don't have a war on cash. Actually, I do have a war on cash. So I don't have any. I know who does, though. Tim in Miami, who joins me right now, 1-800-878-PLAY. What's happening?
Hey, what's up, Mike? I didn't get to participate yesterday in the burial of the Viking Experience. So on a slow news day, I wanted to take my shot at this thing today.
Well, first, with your knowledge of professional wrestling and your history as a intrepid veteran wrestling watcher, do you have a choice for a worse nickname or some of the worst nicknames in tag team wrestling, which I know you heard yesterday, your ding-dongs, your Rybaxels and such? Do you have an addition to this?
Well, you know what it made me think of was, I don't know if you remember when Harlem Heat was in Global in like 91, 92. Their team name was the Ebony Experience, which sounds even more like a theme night at the Ramrod Bar and Lounge than the Viking Experience does.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a Janet Jack Me porno or something like that. I don't know who the updated version of her would be, but you know what I mean.
Well, but at least the Ebony Experience has some like alliteration to it. I don't know what this Viking Experience is, and I was speculating on the board. I wonder if people in WWE have just gotten so beaten down that they don't even tell Vince when he's got just an abjectly stupid idea, or I wonder if people are actually like as a rib providing him with the most horrible ideas they can think of to see which ones they can slip through.
I don't think that's the case, though, because, it's like what Dave and Brian said, and what a lot of people have said about, Vince there when things, filter through him, even though that people do things to maybe see what they can get by him, he really does believe what he's doing is the right thing, which, of course, then leads to the question of how in touch is he, and there will be people that will defend him to the fullest and everything like that, but I think it's just a case of just missing the mark on some things. And this name being the big thing. And I just want to say this, Tim, too, because I pointed out yesterday about the whole thing with 9/11 and war, why that was originally dropped and why I could see there being a little bit of an aversion to having a name like the War Raiders. But now I'm wondering if was there a trademark reason or was it just purely all Vince because they have Ember Moon come out and she is the war goddess on SmackDown now all of a sudden. So it obviously didn't have anything to do with war, and unless he was just really tunnel visioned on, no, Miss Moon is the only one in this company that's going to have anything to do with war. It was just one of those random wacky Vince things where it was the Viking experience, which, hey, for as much as Corey and everybody else busted Sarah Logan's stones as soon as it came out that she was part Viking, and they ran with that story on commentary for a couple weeks and kept pointing it out. Maybe it is something that Vince just finds to be ridiculous or whatever it is, and it's just something he likes to mess with.
Well, if you wanted to do a Viking thing, you should have paid homage to the man who brought being a Viking to the mainstream. You should have just called them the Berserkers. Remember that guy?
Well, that's what I was wondering. It's like, I can't believe one of them's not named Nord.
Well, Mike, I'm 2/3. This is an important issue for me because I'm 2/3 Viking. I just learned I eat raw meat. I make my own weapons, but my mom buys my clothes, so I can only check 2 of the 3 boxes.
Tim in Miami, thank you very much for the call. At least your parents didn't throw out your porn collection like that guy in Indiana who's suing his parents, the 40-something-year-old man who's placed a 5-digit value on his old porn collection. I'm sure he knows who the updated version of Janet Jackney is. Join me, Cam, 1-800-878-PLAY, 1-800-878-7529. Dom, you got any ideas on who that would be? Misty Stone? No? Anyway. The full list of new members on the SmackDown roster. Intercontinental Champion Finn Balor, which, one would assume, means Samoa Joe is going to Raw. One would assume. Dave had said that initially Samoa Joe was not making it to Raw. He got sick. Apparently did make it to Raw in Montreal. This was talking on Monday afternoon. We were hearing that there were some issues with travel and things like that. Joe apparently made it. He was apparently ill. The doctor said, "You're off." And that's what happened there. So now that Finn Balor just appeared on SmackDown, one is going to assume that because he's the Intercontinental Champion, they do this every time. It's the easiest thing to do when it comes to the belts, that Joe goes and gets shifted, and now Braun Strowman and Joe can have a battle for the U.S. title, which I'm okay with. As I mentioned, Ember Moon and Liv Morgan over on SmackDown, as well as Kairi Sane and Io Shirai. Mr. Flibbles, I'm Blue Brand Mark, so I want to say that SmackDown was great, but Asuka instead of Io, sad times. I guess at least this way the Sky Pirates weren't renamed the Asian Experience or something. We're going to beat on these experience things for a while, aren't we? Io still, I'd like to see. I'm fine with it. I would love to have seen them come up onto the main roster. But if this gives Asuka something to do, and it puts her and Insane together under the guidance or with Paige there as their mouthpiece, I like all of that. I'm good with that. Because it keeps Io down in NXT, and we can have any number of great matches with her down there, depending on who she faces. Good ones, at least, because she's good, and she can pretty much drag anybody to a good match. So I'm okay with it. Her and Shayna Baszler for that title, because I just can't believe that Shayna Baszler's not going to be up after a while. I don't think she makes it the whole year down there. That whole crew, I don't think they do. But we'll see. Go back to the phone lines now. 2 days in a row. Sitting Duck in Vancouver Island. Producer Dom got it right. What's up?
Very happy that you got it right this time. Let me tell you something, though, before I get to my first topic. Mike, your shows, I'll be honest, have groaned when I heard it was just you alone. But this time without Brian here, you really held it down, and these shows have been pretty darn good, I must say.
See, that's because all you silly bastards never wanted to give me enough credit. None of you wanted to give me enough credit. You've tried to run me off of there. You said I'm not Vinny. No one can be Vinny. Who else can do shows with Brian and put up with him? Not everybody can be Dave. I've been much maligned. I am glad you're seeing the light now, finally. Thank you.
It took some time. But so yesterday, I was listening to the show, and you said the old draft used to be good. And I've never been a fan of the brand split in general. So I went back and I watched some of it with doubtful eyes, skeptical. And I saw a scene there with Paul Heyman on one podium, Eric Bischoff on the other, and they were arguing over who gets what, and it was actually very compelling. I was genuinely surprised, I got to say.
I mean, to me, why don't they do that? But it's, this has been a thing when it comes to the draft. It's the sports thing of they don't per se like sports, where to me, if you make a big hullabaloo around like the first 5 picks on the show, especially with Raw because it's so long that you could drag it out, you can have trades happen. Then you can still have a bunch of other random things that take place. To me, it was just really pedestrian, and I'm just more surprised than anything that they hyped it up for so many weeks. And in December, they were talking about kind of like doing the quote-unquote shake-up. That's when we actually got, towards the beginning of the year to get, Lacey Evans and Heavy Machinery and all those sorts of groups. I just thought because they were kind of building it up that they did kind of a lame job with it, but what do I know? They just kind of really, to me, went through the motions on it, and I don't think helped out their cause as far as causing any excitement or anything like that, because really everything feels the same. How fresh is this going to feel next week? I doubt it all.
No, and if they're not into it, how the hell is us as fans are supposed to be into it? I have no idea. Also, now just quickly kind of jeering and changing subjects real quickly to something we talked about yesterday as well. I tell you, here on Vancouver Island, the reefers will affect your memory. And I had forgotten how many bad tag team names there were. Techno Team 2000, some of these, I honestly, the mind chooses what it wants to remember. And, man, I forgot some of these bad tag team names, I'll tell you.
Duck, I want to thank you very much for calling and enjoy all of the fine flowers and oils that you have up there on the island. We'll keep it on the phone lines now. Joe in New Jersey. Joe, how are you? Oh, good. We've had a delay, so go ahead. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was going to talk about the Bruiser Brody documentary that was on Vice. I just saw it online today, and it was on the Vice website, and it's like a masterpiece for something that short to be able to tell the story that it did. And then on top of it, I was going to ask you about Raw and Finn Balor putting over Andrade. Like, what was the point of that if he was getting drafted?
I think it was just to really kind of establish Andrade, and they had it establishes Andrade on that brand, I think. More than anything, I think that's what it is. And basically now they can pretend that you forget about it as well, too. And Joe, we're close on time, unfortunately, before we wrap up this segment. I got Marcelo in Denver on the line, too, so I want to get him on here as well. But I think that's really, it's just as simple as that, as they gave Andrade a good win. It was a good match. It didn't kill Finn at all or anything like that, but I hear the music. Marcelo, I'm sorry, buddy. Got to give a call back tomorrow. I apologize to you. Because coming up from Saturday night's main event, or Sunday night's main event, for heaven's sakes, TSN 1150 in Toronto, Canada. Our friend Jason Agnew is going to join me. We'll be right back. Mike Sempervive back here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Joined by our good friend, a man who has me on his show quite often. Makes me very, very happy. From TSN 1150 in Canada. And also available wherever you get your podcasts, including this one right here. Jason Agnew, Sunday night's main event. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I won't complain too much, my friend. You've made it through the whole superstar shakeup. You didn't have to worry about going anywhere now, did you? You didn't pick up and hear any calls from Vince saying he wanted to rename the show and move you over to a different station?
No, let's face it. I went through my shakeup about a year and a half ago, and I had to rename my show and start a new one. So I'm good this year.
That's, you know what, and that's around about the last time you were on here, actually, when it was made its re-debut and in podcasting form, and now you're back on terrestrial over-the-air radio on TSN 1150. When did that come about, and how did that go down?
Well, my whole thing was I always wanted to launch with being on the radio, right, doing terrestrial again. So it's always been a part of the TSN family. We got back on TSN. Of course, people probably know me as the former host of Live Audio Wrestling, The Law. It was always like The Observer and The Law from way back in the late 90s. So the eruption with the Fight Network happened about a year ago, and then, I got myself back on TSN Radio, so it's myself and Dan the Mouth of Ransky, Sunday nights. It's just called Sunday Night's Main Event now, just a slight name change.
That's awesome, and still have all the things that everybody remembers, including our very own Big Dave Meltzer, who always pops on every week, and I know you're going to be talking to him this upcoming week as well, too, and I'm sure one of the big topics of conversation is certainly going to be this superstar shake-up. And now that the post-mortem looks to have happened, we still have to see what may shake out with NXT or NXT UK coming up here in the future. But at least initially, everything has shaken out and is done. Roman Reigns being the biggest name, traded with AJ Styles, those Roman over on SmackDown, AJ on Raw. What did you think about the shows, and what have you thought about some of the moves that got made?
Well, I think I'm going to echo what a lot of your listeners have been saying, is that it's a big part of the problem with this is the format. I mean, you're moving guys back and forth, and the format is so random. And one thing that I've been bringing up on the show for the past couple of weeks is the fact that this doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make a difference, because for the past about month or so, there's been so many so-called free agents, and even last week we saw people going back and forth to Raw and SmackDown. It doesn't mean anything unless there's rules put in place, unless there's borders put in place, and we really haven't seen that. Now, I don't know if this is the start of that now, but because WWE really doesn't seem to hold to the brand split, why does this even happen, Mike? What's the point?
That's a good question. To me, you do it as it's content you create for TV shows, and obviously you shake up the brands after WrestleMania. I think that's a good idea, because if you think about what WrestleMania is supposed to be, it's supposed to be the pinnacle of your year, and then you kind of start over and you move on and you start the cycle again. So I don't mind the superstar shakeup or the draft idea, even though some people, Brian Alvarez, in fact, hates it. I like the idea, but I would rather see it be used more sportingly and having those aspects, or being used to drive television and drive angles and things like that leading out, not guys making random, the announcers guess if they're on the roster, and then we have to check afterwards to make sure that's truly the case. You know what I mean? It's just, to me, it's a way to when you have so much content, to create something special, and they haven't.
I think that you make a great point. I mean, we saw that. A great example this year was with Lars Sullivan, who popped up on Raw. We all thought he was going to be on Raw, and therefore they moved the other monster, Braun Strowman, over to SmackDown. But it turns out Lars is on SmackDown. It just really doesn't make sense. I know you're a sports guy, and I know you love football, and myself, it's more so with hockey, but like the football and hockey draft, there's such a big deal because there's rules in place. And I mean, I like what you said about the season finale and the beginning of the new season, but I really thought that we saw that with the debuts from NXT over the past maybe 5 years or so. We've gotten a lot of that. And I think that WWE, really shot themselves in the foot this year by bringing up 10 NXT talents within about 3 months before WrestleMania, and therefore ruined how special that Raw after WrestleMania has become every year. And it's like this nice thing WWE gave the hardcore fans that would stick around for one day afterwards to, go to the 20,000-seater instead of the 60,000-seater, and they get to see that really special night. Well, this year, I don't know about you, Mike, but I thought WWE just took that all away, and Raw last week didn't mean anything at all, which was incredibly disappointing because it's something I actually look forward to.
Yeah, I agree. And you remember the first initial ones, and they were a little bit of a mess, and you could poke holes in them, but I think they were certainly far more exciting than this one was. And being a hockey fan, and there's, again, we're in Sports Byline, so there are a lot of hockey fans that will be listening, where look at trade. If anybody can, if you're not a hockey fan, the mania of trade deadline day, the end of February, every year in the NHL, it's crazy exciting. Football fans can kind of equate it to the NFL draft day. The NBA's trade deadline day isn't as exciting, although it has peaked, it picked up in the last couple of years with some trades and things like that. But like, that sort of approach, I think, can carry you through a couple of days, including a couple of weeks of programming with some of the things that you do. And I think you did lose some of the effect by bringing up Lacey and EC3 and those people and saying we're going to make this big change and then not doing everything to them and having them in limbo. to me, it's not special when 2 months down the line, after we've seen him on both brands, now you're going to put him on a brand. What does it mean? I mean, for heaven's sakes, Sanity doesn't even exist anymore, it doesn't look like. So, I don't like what they've done there, but I'm going to hook onto that Sanity thing and take the name Alexander Wolf out and tie it to Luke Harper and take Luke Harper's name and now tie it to Sasha and many other people who seem to be unhappy in WWE. What do you think about this new trend of people going public with the fact that they're frustrated? Because, in my opinion, no matter what anybody wants to think about the situation, now seems to be the only time for the foreseeable future where you can get away with trying to hold WWE to the fire and trying to use everything at your disposal to either get what you want, either out of WWE or to get your release to go somewhere else. So I don't mind people taking this public approach to it, even though some people are saying that Sasha is whining. But to me, it's like you might as well take everything and use it. It may not work, but you might as well take this advantage because when are you going to have it again?
Well, let's face it, though. I mean, everyone did sign contracts, and let's remember how happy they actually were when they signed those contracts. I mean, Sasha Banks isn't Sasha Banks without the WWE behind her, right? So I do think that on the other end of this, AEW's got to be very careful with not just being a dumpster for all this WWE talent that thinks that they're leaving to automatically go to AEW. I mean, that's the first thing that everybody thinks about, right? Is, oh, well, I guess they're going to AEW. Well, that can't be the case, because we really did see that happen with Impact Wrestling a while back, where it was anyone leaves WWE, they're going to Impact. And I mean, look what happened to Impact. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to AEW, but I do think they have to be careful and they have to be selective, and it can't seem like a dumping ground. If anything, it can seem like they're poaching, like with the Dean Ambrose of the world, when there's something special to a performer. But if someone's down and out, then you don't just want to be taking everybody in. Like Wolf, why do we want Wolf from Sanity? I don't think that we need that. And actually, I think his tweet was not saying he's going to leave. He's just saying he's done with Sanity. Sanity's done, and there's something new for him in WWE. Maybe. Hopefully.
That's possible. And again, there's another person who could end up on NXT UK. I talked about Killian Dane earlier, if that was going to be it all with Sanity. And who knows? They have not used Nikki Cross for anything, and they really didn't feature. And again, we'll have to see what kind of happens going forward here. But they did some moves. Obviously, got Buddy Murphy off of 205 Live. He's on SmackDown. Cedric it goes to Raw, and I don't know if that's going to be. I like him a lot, so I'm hoping it works, but we'll have to see what happens there. But what do you think about including NXT and NXT UK, and do you think that we're going to see anything on those shows and start seeing some more moves that maybe fly a little bit under the radar, or do you think they'll just kind of leave that alone? Because I don't think that they utilize either one of those brands. They certainly didn't use NXT here as much as I thought they were going to in the whole draft scenario.
Well, I mean, we did see the call-ups of the War Raiders and whatever their new name, the Viking Experience, called up, and we've seen so much pulled away from NXT to begin with. I think that one of the people that was missing was Pete Dunne, and that proves that he's more valuable to the UK brand. And I actually think you make a great point with Killian Dane, who needs a rebranding. He needs to be perceived as a solo wrestler, and he is of value to that market. And I do think that you're right. He should be going right back over to that market and play a factor in NXT UK.
And at least over there, he can try to, and obviously nobody's going to be the height of Walter, or a few people are going to be the height of Walter, but you saw it with Pete Dunne, but not everybody can be Pete Dunne. Not everybody is so damn good that they can be so much smaller than Walter visually and mentally, because again, obviously when they're, for UK fans and for people who are in Europe who are familiar with a lot of those guys' work, especially Walter's over the years, you can see different things in them, but for newer fans and things like that, it's like, well, man, who can take out Walter? When you have those bigger guys there, for him to slam into at top speed, over the next couple of months, hopefully, and God knows how long in NXT UK, I think that's a good way to go. Do you see any women like Toni Storm or Rhea Ripley or anything like that? Or is there anybody else that you could see maybe from the women's side kind of floated up to be? Because I know some people are upset. Obviously, you heard a little bit earlier on with the person talking about Io Shirai not being called up. Mm-hmm. Could you see some of the women over at NXT UK maybe being inserted a little bit more into the NXT routine?
Yeah, I think I think Toni Storm on the NXT brand would be really great. And I actually agree with not bringing up Io Shirai. The fact of the matter is, she's still got, there's many fresh programs in NXT for her, and she didn't need to come up right away. I'm not a Kairi Sane fan, so I don't like her being paired with anyone, but Asuka really wasn't doing much and seems to have been forgotten, unfortunately. So I don't mind pairing those two up. My biggest question is, why isn't Shayna Baszler on the main roster? Why didn't we see her on SmackDown coming out and challenging Becky Lynch, or at least challenging someone? Because Shayna's programs are done in NXT. Ronda Rousey is off the main roster right now. There's your replacement. There's someone to avenge her friend's loss. And Shayna's dynamite. I've liked her since the beginning, and she's only gotten better.
I agree with you. Absolutely. Well, I agree with you. Well, here's hold on now. I agree with you as far as how great I think Shayna Baszler is, but here's where I disagree with you. I don't think you have to do it now because, one, selfishly, I'm still all about like seeing some EO Baszler matches, a whole series with them. I would be completely happy with that. In fact, I'd love to see her against those Tony Storms and those other types and the people that she wrestled over in Japan and stuff like that. But I think having her with Marina, having her with Jessica or who's the other girl? There's Jessica I down there, but it's not. It's,
Jessamine Duke.
But you know who I mean. Anyway, regardless, Jessamine Duke, thank you. Having her with them and keeping her down there, and maybe, look, Ronda's going to be out for at least a year. And I know it's a long way off now, but like Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, once we get through this malaise of summer, and SummerSlam happens, that stuff's going to start coming up quick. I think you can go ahead and wait on that because I think her making a really super impactful debut around the time of the Royal Rumble and leading into WrestleMania, I think that would be perfect because I think more than it helps really Shayna, I think it will help the whole group if you end up bringing her up with those two thugs at her side and then possibly bringing her back in with Ronda.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind that either. I don't think the other two are ready. I think Shayna's definitely ready, and you bring up a valid point. If they're going to keep them together, the other two are not ready yet. So they can't come up as of this point. So if they're going to start working that as a faction, then NXT is the time to work out the kinks in the faction and maybe get a stylist and maybe get a name. The Three Horsemen ain't going to work, so let's come up with something else.
Hey, Jason, I hear the music here. Hold on the line. We'll be back. Jason Agnew here. Sunday night's main event. This is Wrestling Observer Live. We'll be back. Back on the show, Mike Sempervive here with you. 2 minutes to go. 2-minute warning. Being joined by Jason Agnew, Sunday night's main event. Jason, are we ready for dark, heel, brooding Bayley? Because after that reaction in Montreal last night, I think I'm ready for it.
Well, here's the deal, though. Remember, it's Canada, and they're going to call it the Bizarro World, and they're probably going to hope Bayley goes back to a babyface when she crosses the border, right?
It's possible. I don't know. The tide was turning on her seemingly, and then they got it back straight again once the tag team with Sasha formed. So who knows? Maybe people are ready just to boo Bayley.
Well, if they do that, Mike, I want to see Izzy back on TV, and I want to see Bayley cut a big promo on Izzy.
Either that or Izzy goes all goth and dark and angry and brooding too, and then so you'd have her angry Bayley buddies, but. Jason, I want to thank you very much for coming on with me, and I really want to thank you very much for having me on, too. I always appreciate when you have me on there doing the three-ways with Jimmy Corderas and with everybody, and I really appreciate it. And how can everybody check out the show if they're not doing so already?
Well, we're on all the social medias at SNME Radio, and just check out SundayNightsMainEvent.com. We're on CSN 1150 on Sunday nights, but your hub is SundayNightsMainEvent.com. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll do this again super soon. We always get a chance to do that here at Wrestling Observer Live because we're here with you every single day, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 7 GMT. Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, 10 GMT. Thank you all out there for listening. Thank you, Producer Dom. Thank you, Mr. Agnew. We will talk to you again.
Faded jeans. broad shoulders, and blonde hair. Wow. Now that's a poster.
To receive your Jeff Jarrett poster, send $4.95. That's right, only $4.95 plus $1 shipping and handling to CWA Jarrett Poster, P.O. Box 396, Paulsboro, New Jersey, 08066.
But if you would, please, come on in, Roddy Piper, Dr. David Schultz, and you, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, six-man tag, Putski, Johnson, Atlas.
You know something? I've wrestled Hulk Hogan. He couldn't beat me. I wrestled Tito Santana. He couldn't beat me. I wrestled Salvatore Bellomo. He couldn't beat me. I've beaten every one of them. I'm undefeated. And know what do they do? Now they try to gang up on us. Well, it's not going to work because we're going to beat them just like we've beaten everybody else.
All right, Dr. David Schultz.
I'm not going to say nothing about what happened the last time when Roddy Piper and myself left the Gardens, but some big goof was toted out. Now, you got Rocky Johnson and that Tony Atlas, that Ivy Busty. Let me tell you, happy birthday, Tony Atlas. Happy birthday. Because where I come from, and I'm going to remember where I come from, we tie people up on their birthday and we whoop them. We whoop them. We give them one lick for each year of their age. And that means you're going to have stripes all over your back, boy. And then I'm going to grab Rocky Johnson, and I'm going to pretend it's his birthday, and we're going to put straps on him, and we're going to hold Ivan Putski and make him witness it, because I think he needs to see what it's all about.
All right, very good. Roddy Piper, I'd love to talk to you, however, time does not permit.
The giant killers don't have time anyway.
I thank you very much, gentlemen. Big card back at Madison Square Garden.